Hi there, this is Livia Custer, and I'm currently working at USD 219 in Mineola. And I am working on how to do a quadrant sort using AimsWeb data. I've selected a third grade model class to just walk through the process of how a quadrant sort works and the basics of developing your own quadrant sort. So a few things that you're going to want to need before you start your quadrant sort is obviously you're going to want your benchmark data, and the universal screener that we're using is AimsWeb. It really depends upon the protocols that your district has developed for your intervention or just assessment system. And so it could be FastBridge as your screener. It could be NWEA Maps. It could be AimsWeb. There's multiple really great reading. There's many different screeners that you can utilize to guide your data talks for quadrant sorts. Once you've created your protocols, you'll want to talk about what is your tier 3, is that 10th percentile and lower, tier 2, 25th percentile to 11th percentile, and then tier 1 is 30th percentile and above. It really depends upon what protocols you and your district feel is best for your student population. After those protocols are created, then you're able to help really narrow down and hone in on your quadrant sort using the data from the screeners that you do beginning, middle, and end of the year. So here is a quadrant sort that I've created based upon TASN and MTSS training that I've received previously. This is modeled after it, but it has kind of developed and uh, morphed and modified as each district has different needs and each grade level has different wants. So it's just always been a work in progress, like we always do in education. So here's a reading and math quadrant sort side by side. I like to have it on one page, so when I print it and put it into our district data binder, it's easy to access and utilize. The one thing that's really changed from the beginning of MTSS training to now, it was really hard and fast on your quadrant sorts of what was required for each quadrant. And we're starting to notice and see that the skills and needs at the primary are maybe a little bit different than what a third and fourth grade classroom has, and same as what a seventh and eighth grade classroom needs. So here in Mineola, we are differentiating our quadrant sorts a little bit to help with that gradual skill progression that we have from K up through 8. We're also utilizing this in the high school, but our screener there is FastBridge, but it's still the same process and the same method. So in our reading quadrant sorts, you're going to see, that's why I chose third grade, because it's middle of the road. You'll see down here in quadrant 4, that would be considered more of a tier 3, really high need, low accuracy, low fluency. And this would be really focusing on beginning phonics skills. Then we move into the next progression of reading skills, which would be more of advanced phonics for a third grade classroom, second, third, fourth grade classroom. And this is where we see maybe decent fluency, but maybe the accuracy isn't there, or fluency could be a little rough. Accuracy is non-existent. They really struggle with attacking multisyllabic words. Then it moves up into our quadrant 2, which is fluency. They are accurate. They get the words right, but they are not fluent. They are maybe slow, and they're having to really work on decoding and attacking the words, but it's very tedious and slow for them. And then the last quadrant is moving into your comprehension quadrant. And that is the culmination of all three of these lower quartiles. Quadrant 4, 3, 2 moves up into quadrant 1. You'll also see that we note what tier that is and who's going to be in charge of that intervention. Then down below, you'll see that we have students that are at grade level or well above grade level in enrichment, and that's where we write them down here. And we also write down our intervention plan. One thing that we wanted to add and change from this last benchmark rotation meeting that we had, is we want to add our goals to this part as well. So what goal we have for each tier and how we're going to achieve that goal. And then over here in our math, again, the teacher, grade level teacher and team discussed what those skills and categories are needed for that third grade quadrant sort. So down here is the most basic math skill that they need, which is number sense fluency. Kindergarten, it may be just number identification. So you can see how you can adjust and modify your quadrants for what your district or grade level needs. And then it's still kind of the same premise, though, of not accurate, not fluent. Here you would be maybe fluent but inaccurate. Here, not fluent on your math facts. And then here is more of the comprehension of the application piece for math. Again, these skills change as we move into the upper middle school level, and it's more algebra or concepts and applications are different for those grade levels. So, and then again, grade level and above grade level down below with our intervention plan. So what we need in order to be successful is we need our benchmark data. This is our third grade math benchmark assessment data from winter. You can see our fall data here. We have had some significant growth in this grade level. And I love this report. It's very visual, it's very appealing, it's very clear, but it can be a little bit deceiving, and I'm going to talk to you a little bit about that as we move further down. Then down here, we have our skills report. This is what we utilize to help make our tier 1 growth goals and what we're going to focus on as a grade level. Then I also am there to help provide resources, materials, professional development on meeting that grade level goal. So for her grade level goal, she looked down here, down below, concepts and application, which is more of tier 1 grade level. And then she also wanted to work on math fact fluency and computation for the classroom as well. Then down here, this is where that tier report can be a little bit deceiving. Sometimes you'll see the tiers don't change a lot. You may have only one student move from tier 1 into tier 2 or vice versa. And it's kind of deceiving, especially when you have a small student population like our district does. A lot of our classrooms have 18 students, maximum 20. And so, it can be one student can really manipulate that tier report. So what we like to look at is this scores and skills plan report. And this shows growth as a grade level, or as a grade. So you can see that this class went up 28 points and in comparison to the national norm of 11 points. So they are making adequate, and if not even more than adequate growth in this class. And they're at a 72 percentile growth rate, which is very good. So then we move down, and this is where we start drilling down into our data to help with our quadrant sort. What we look at first is our composite score. We like to do a lot of our reports, or if not a lot, all of them, in normative referenced reports. And that allows us to help us compare across buildings because we use a couple of different screeners. So being able to compare AimsWeb screener to our FastBridge screener, normative data really helps us be able to compare them a little bit more adequately. So here is this student, number 8, is in the first percentile. Then we're going to start drilling down of what's causing that student to be in the first percentile. This NSF is our number sense fluency. Your key is up here up at the top. It helps you know what those acronyms are for. So NSF is the first percentile, number sense fluency. Number comparison fluency was at the 4th percentile. Math fact fluency was at the 3rd percentile, and concepts and application was at the 1st percentile. So based upon this data, this is a pretty straightforward sort for this student. We would be putting him down in here into the 1st percentile, or sorry, the 4th quadrant. Student number 8. Ames 1st percentile. We're going to progress monitor using the NSF measure from AimsWeb. You'll notice that on our protocols for our district that our quadrant 4 or students that are 10th percentile and below need to be progress monitored 2 times per month, so every 2 weeks. If they are a 25th percentile to the 11th percentile, or usually quadrant 3 kid, sometimes quadrant 2, they all need to be progress monitored once a month. So if they're in the yellow, they need to be progress once a month using AimsWeb. And then if they are above that 25th, really, I push my teachers to go at least 30th percentile, and we can change that if we want. But to progress monitor 30th percentile and below. So that's kind of what our protocols are for progress monitoring. So we go to our next kiddo. Our next student was student number 4. She was at the 3rd percentile, and again, low for 1st percentile in SF, 4th percentile in CF. Her math fact fluency was 3rd percentile, and her concepts and application was at the 8th percentile. So what we want to do is probably put that student down in that, oh, sorry, wrong button. Put them down into the quadrant 4. Student 4 was in the 3rd percentile. We'll progress monitor using the NSF. After we get this quadrant completed, then we'll talk about what we want to use to help address the nonsense or number sense fluency piece. Student number 6 was in the 6th percentile, was better at number sense fluency, number comparison fluency. Math fact fluency was at the 15th percentile, and concepts and application was at the 8th. Now, the first reaction or the first instinct that teachers think is, oh, concepts and application is the lowest, so let's go put them in that group. But we have to remember that all these skills build into that concepts and application. Same thing with reading. All these skills build up into that comprehension. So obviously this student has some holes that they need to address before they move on into a more advanced concepts and application group. So this specific student is still needing number sense that based upon the student or the teacher's request and observations in the classroom, also how they're performing on other measures in small group, they are needing number sense work. So we're going to put them here. They were at the 6th percentile. And we will continue to progress monitor with their NSF. One little thing that we do, this student number 8 is a special education student. They do have an IEP. Typically, quite a few of our special education students don't quite fit into our intervention groups because they are at a very different level than the rest of their classroom peers. This student in particular is pull out, and they are not receiving any in-class instruction. So they are not in this intervention small group with the classroom teacher. This student is a special education student, but they are inclusion in the classroom, and they are going to they only receive support services in the classroom. And so they will be in the intervention group in the classroom, if that makes sense. Now we're going to move on to our student number 18. They're in the 14th percentile. And again, we're going to drill down. They have some number sense fluency skills that they're working on, number comparison fluency, math fact fluency, as well as concepts and application. Now you'll see this one's kind of in that gray area. Do they really fit in that quadrant 4, or do they fit more into a more advanced number sense, number comparison group? And based upon classroom performance, teacher input, they felt that they would be a better indicator going here into this quadrant 3, working on more advanced number sense comparison work. So that would be student 18. They were at the 14th percentile, and we are going to continue to progress monitor using the NSF. You'll notice that with AimsWeb, the only progress monitor piece for this grade level is number sense fluency. So that's where we have to talk about some of our interventions have progress monitoring pieces embedded. We can use those to help guide, is the intervention working or not? We can also use things like Easy CBM, those types of programs that are online as well. Next student was student number 14. They jumped way up from 14th percentile to the 42nd percentile. Now, some of my teachers in the past would have been like, hey, they're green. I'm not going to worry about them. We are kind of changing our mindset a little bit about this, and here's why. These are the students where we get our most growth. These are the ones we get our most bang for our buck. They're called our bubbles. And you can see that this student is needing some number sense fluency work as well as math fact fluency. So based upon teacher input and classroom performance data, we feel that they would benefit from a math fact fluency group. So that's student number 14, 42nd percentile. We're going to progress monitor since that's really, we could use the number sense fluency here because they are at the 18th percentile. We could do that. And I am going to really encourage that teacher. I want you to use the NSF and Rocket Math. That's their math fact fluency program that they use. So I'm going to be checking both of those things to see, are they making gains and growth in those two measures? Again, they would only have to do it once a month with them. Okay, our next kiddo is a 42nd percentile student, made really great growth from fall to winter, met their NSF goal. They are needing some concepts and application support. Again, it's green, but it's really close to not being green. So that's where we put that judgment call from the classroom performance. Do they need to work on grade level concepts and application skill work? Yes. So student number 5 is coming over here. And they're going to be working on Envision small group math. Okay. And that's what we're going to be using to progress monitor their growth. Then we bump on down. Again, student number 10, still in the green, but we still have some concerns and we have the resource and manpower available. So we might as well utilize it. So we've got student number 10. We're going to put them into that quadrant 4. So you can see once you really get going, this process goes really quite fast once you have your systems in place. And I can continue on and on and on. Okay, student number 2, made good growth. This teacher feels that they really aren't too concerned about them. They're really starting to apply the skills in class. So she wants to put them more in grade level. Again, this is kind of where you guys can differentiate. Quadrant 1, you can keep as grade level tier 1, or it can be a tier 1, tier 2 mix. Or if you want to really keep them separate, this is tier 2 for grade level concepts and application, tier 2. And then this is for grade level tier 1. So you guys can decide how you want to do that. We typically keep this tier 2. Usually there's some concepts and application holes in there that they don't have from last year. And then our grade level kids go down below. So that was student number 2, correct? Okay. And they were at the 43rd percentile. We really aren't going to progress monitor them, okay? Now, student 16, again, they are struggling. They did okay on their math fact fluency on AimsWeb, but they are struggling in the classroom on math fact fluency. It's not automatic. They don't have a lot of their facts. So this student, believe it or not, 47th percentile, we're still going to go put them into a fluency group. So again, it is, before it used to be very, very hard, fast. It has to be, they have to be within the certain percentile in order for them to fit into that quadrant. Now we're noticing that we can be much more flexible and meet our kids where they need to be. And okay, student number 1. So I can continue and do this for the entire class in front of you, but I don't want to waste your time. I think that you're seeing the routine and the process of how this works. See, you have another student down here, 50th percentile, but struggles with some concepts and application. So I'm going to go put them in the concepts and application group. The rest of these students are going to go down below into this enrichment section because they are clearly showing that they are well above. And that then again offers the opportunity to start talking about how can we enrich? How can we differentiate? What can we add or substitute for these students that are clearly working well above their peers? Now let's move over into the reading. Again, we have our 4 reading quadrants, and they work just like our math quadrants. This is our absolute lowest skill quadrant, and it moves into our next skill, third skill, and then our more cumulative skill of comprehension. In the primary level, this is more like letter identification, letter sound identification, and then it moves into word segmenting, word blending, and then we move more into nonsense word fluency, and then we move into sight word and word fluency. So you can modify and accommodate these categories into what your skills need set is for your grade level. So let's pull up that report. Here's their growth for reading, not quite as adequate or as much as the math, but still growth, and that's great. And again, we can say it can be, what's the word I'm looking for? Deceiving a little bit. That one kid can really affect what your tiers look like on your tier reports. Here's our skill report. She set her tier 1 goal for ORF, reading fluency. And when she saw this, she's like, oh my gosh, I'm terrible at fluency. I said, no, you're not. It's a grade level thing. Second and third grades focus on fluency. That's what it's all about, learning to read and reading it right. So she's right where she needs to be as a grade level. This is where we really talk about, are we making growth in comparison to the national norm? So yes, they were quite low in comparison to the national norm, and we are making adequate, in fact, great gains in order to become more aligned with the national norm. So now we start drilling down. Student number 8, first percentile, and I start drilling down. Vocabulary, reading comprehension, oral reading fluency. So that student, again, clearly is down here in the first or fourth quartile. He is a special education student, and he was at the first percentile. He, the PW category or column, that is their pathway score. So what we look at on pathways is it's a 5-point rubric score, and we use the spreadsheet provided by Pathways to help us track data that we collect from there. So this student scored a 1 on their Pathways score, and I want that number to be a plain number. There we go. Okay. And I do need to go in and fix the color coding on that. It's not quite the way I want it to be. There we go. So he scored a 1 out of 5, which is clearly showing that there is a basic beginning phonics need for him. Progress monitor, we're going to use we're going to use ORF, and we're going to use Pathways. So we'll use the ORF measure from AimsWeb, and then we'll just do our regular Pathways progress monitoring that we do daily, weekly, and as needed. Okay. Next student we have is student number 14. They were in the 12th percentile. Great working vocabulary. Reading comprehension is on the low side. Fluency is on the low side. So we come over here and we look at what's the lowest indicating skill that they need. We did drill down and do a diagnostic on the student. Why are they so low on the overall composite? And that is part of our protocols. Any student that is, well, we Pathways assess all of our students K2. And then any students that are in the 25th percentile or lower, we do a pathways benchmark on them from 3rd grade through 8th grade. So we have that pathways data available to us. So based upon their data here, it shows, oh, we should put them into fluency. But there's some underlying things going on based upon their diagnostic. So I'm going to put that student into an advanced phonics group. They aren't as low as basic beginning phonics. They're more of working on an advanced phonics, multisyllabic word attack. So student number 14 is going into this quadrant. Triangulating our data, using our classroom performance to help guide our instruction. Again, this student was a 3 out of 5 on the rubric from Pathways. So that's what's guiding our conversation and data for which category they should go into, either fluency or advanced phonics multisyllable strategies. Student number 18 was at the 18th percentile. Vocabulary is a little low. Reading comprehension's decent. Fluency is quite low. What's keeping them there? Do a diagnostic. And on that diagnostic, it was showing that they were still at a 3 on pathways. They still need pathways instruction. And what am I going to be progress monitoring with? I'll be using the ORF and PW, pathways to reading. Let's see, next kiddo. Student number 4, 25th percentile, so a little bit higher. Vocab's a little bit stronger. Reading comprehension's 40th percentile, 12th percentile on ORF, so better. That student, again, was still indicating a 3 out of 5 on their pathways. That's what I'm looking at right now. And that would qualify them for quadrant 3 pathways instruction. Next kid, ooh, hey, they're green. I don't have to worry about it. That's not our philosophy anymore. So 28th percentile. Now let's drill down just to make sure. Great vocab, decent reading comprehension, little on the bubble. Fluency is really low. So I did do a diagnostic on that student. They had it from before in the fall. They are still in need of pathways instruction. So if you notice, check this out. I do have some yellows and greens down here in quadrant 3, even though it's a tier 3 or tier 2 intervention. This is for sure tier 3. This can be a tier 2 or a tier 3 intervention, dependent upon your student need and load. Here we have student number 6, 28th percentile, again, 4th percentile. Based upon their pathways data, they still need that advanced phonics intervention. So we continued on. This student, number 33, or sorry, number 17, they're at the 33rd percentile. Vocab's a little on the bubble. They're a little on the low side, 35 percentile. 46th percentile for comprehension. They're at the 28th percentile for fluency. They're only a few percentiles from being in the yellow on fluency. And based upon classroom performance, they are needing fluency in the classroom as well. So so this teacher felt that they really could benefit still from fluency. So they're going to continue. Oh, their ORF was at the 28th percentile. We are going to continue to progress monitor on their ORF. They made good gains, but we need to make sure that they keep making them. 16th percentile, or sorry, student number 16, 35th percentile, looking pretty good. Fluency. Based upon their pathways, they did not need to continue with multi-syllable word attack strategies. They figured it out. They can come up here. So student 35. 21st. Okay, ORF. So I could continue on with that, but I think that you're starting to see the pattern. See how you triangulate your data to prove if that kid needs it or not. and if it really will meet its needs. Then I'm going to jump down just a little bit to see if we have any comprehension students in here. And if you look, a lot of them are, this is the comprehension column. They're at the 50th percentile or higher. Their comprehension is looking really good. They're at 60th percentile or higher for comprehension. So really, a lot of this class is purely needing fluency. So typically this would be a comprehension group, but based upon this class's needs, we are going to have a massive fluency group going on. And so what we are probably going to end up doing is fluency group A, fluency group B, leveling them to where they are higher or lower. Now, if we didn't have such a huge fluency group, or if we had kids that were comprehension heavy need, then we would definitely keep a comprehension group. So this just shows you again how you can accommodate and modify your quadrant sorts to truly meet your grade levels or building's needs. And then, of course, all of these students that are above, they're at 60th percentile or higher, they're performing well in the classroom. You can put them into grade level, or you can put them into enrichment. Once we have our quadrant sort all done, then we can come down here into our intervention plan. And this is where we really start to chat about, okay, who's going to be in charge of what? How long is that protocol going to last? How many minutes? What materials are we going to utilize? And getting down to the real nitty-gritty of how this is going to be effective. Lastly, we'll add our goals of we want this group to make 15% growth, or we want this group to have 4 kids move out based upon a realistic growth goal. So if you have any questions, if you have any ideas or things that we can add and change to ours, totally ears. Love to have some input and feedback. But again, this is just a basic quadrant sort that we do for our elementary program using AimsWeb data. If you have any questions, just holler. Thanks so much.